Israel uncovered more tunnels under hospitals in Gaza. The United Nations says that there has been a rapid deterioration of human rights in the Gaza Strip. And Iran once more says they're going to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. What's going on, everyone? Let's take a look at some updates as it relates to the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. I'm recording this at 8 a.m. Central on Thursday, December 28th, 2023. Now, quick housekeeping note here, admin, get this out of the way. I was permanently banned on TikTok yesterday. Then the appeal was denied less than a minute after submitting, so they were on it. Very, very efficient over there at TikTok. I'm not bringing this up as like a pity me or feel bad or follow me somewhere else or donate, anything like that. Please don't. I feel like there's probably some of you that follow me on TikTok and you're not going to see any of my content there, or at least not going to see me, and think maybe I blocked you. I didn't. TikTok blocked me, so you should be good. But big picture, shouldn't really be any impact to those of you watching these videos on YouTube. It's YouTube that has allowed me to, and you all, that have allowed me to hire analysts and additional people for the team to cover topics like Venezuela, Myanmar, Philippines, and others. So that's going to continue. The ban on TikTok is really not going to have any impact to what you see here. Just felt like it was worth bringing up, but you're not here to hear about the social media woes, so let's get on with it. Starting with operations on the ground, Israel says that over the past 24 hours, they're able to locate and search 3 operational tunnel shafts near the Rantisi hospital in Gaza. They did release this infographic that I'll show here, showing kind of where that. I'd like to see more of these. I don't know if I'm alone in that, but we get a lot of graphics showing like the entrances to tunnels and mortar firing points, rocket firing points, things like that. I just think it'd be really helpful to understand the scope of the tunnel networks if Israel released more of these overlays showing where the tunnels are connecting throughout Gaza. But anyways, this is one, shows some of these tunnel networks in and around the Rantisi hospital with the tunnels connecting to adjacent schools and then residential compounds in the area. They say the operational tunnel shaft that was located here in a girls' school is about 20 meters deep and includes an elevator and electrical infrastructure. I'm going to play that video here because I think it's worth showing. A couple interesting aspects here. It was a couple weeks ago, like 4 or 5 weeks ago, I think, when Israel released their first footage from the Rantisi hospital. And one of the things they showed was this elevator shaft, and got a lot of pushback, people saying that's not what you think it is. What they're showing in this video is that it is an elevator going down into a tunnel network that Hamas built in that area. But I think it's interesting that they're still uncovering tunnels. I think it shows just how many of these there are, how well hidden a lot of them are. Again, Israel's been operating in this area for weeks now, and it's going to take so much time to actually clear all of these different portions of Gaza. Even when you look at the map and you see blue overlaid in portions of the Gaza Strip, I mean, it could still be weeks before Israel has even a decent picture of the total underground network that they're operating right on top of. And of course, one of the concerns there is, as we've seen, and I'll show some Hamas footage here in a minute, they're continuing to pop out of these tunnels and engage Israeli forces at close range. So it's not like you can just move over these areas and say, we'll get to those tunnels when we can. Every day that Israel is not uncovering, searching, and destroying these tunnels, it opens up all of their forces in the Gaza Strip to very close range, lethal attacks. Now, Israel says that as part of these raids and scans of the buildings in the area, they were able to kill dozens of Hamas militants. They said they found command and control centers, media equipment, maps, aids, and numerous weapons amongst the various buildings. Then shifting over to the West Bank, Israel says that overnight they arrested 21 people for possession of terrorist funds and that they were suspected of being involved in the financing of Hamas. Israel released some pictures here showing these safes broken open with a bunch of different currencies, a lot of cash, kind of mixed information coming out on this one. Israel says that during the operation, there were tens of millions of shekels, safes, documents, recording systems, and telephones were located. Al Jazeera reported this more as like currency exchanges and banks. So it's kind of the two sides of the story there. Additionally, Al Jazeera reports that at least one Palestinian was killed in these raids, which they described as being like nothing they've seen since October 7th. The scope and the intensity of these raids, according to Al Jazeera, has picked up quite a bit. Then additionally, a report issued earlier today by the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights said that there's been a rapid deterioration of human rights in the West Bank, urging Israeli authorities to end violence in the area. The report said that it had also recorded mass arbitrary detentions, unlawful detentions, and cases of repeated torture and other forms of ill treatment of Palestinian detainees. The report says that some 4,785 Palestinians have been detained in the West Bank since October 7th. The report continued saying, quote, some were stripped naked, blindfolded, and restrained for long hours with handcuffs with their legs tied, while Israeli soldiers stepped on their heads and backs, were spat at, slapped against walls, threatened, insulted, humiliated, and in some cases, subjected to sexual and gender-based violence. Then a spokesperson for Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said the reports were quite ridiculous, is a quote, saying that it completely belittled the major security threats in the region to Israel. She added that, quote, yes, we arrested hundreds of terrorist suspects in the area, and we will continue to do whatever it takes to maintain our security. Then shifting over to Hamas, we got a handful of videos put out by that organization, as well as this first one put out by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They said that they were able to shoot down what they called an Israeli sky racing UAV over Gaza. And what it looks like we're looking at here is a Sky Striker drone or loitering munition that Israel uses. The Sky Striker can reach a distance of around 20 kilometers in about 10 minutes, relatively fast. And then upon reaching that target area, it can loiter and pursue targets for up to 2 hours with a 5-kilogram warhead or up to 1 hour with a 10-kilogram warhead. So if we're looking at this through the lens of what we've seen play out in Ukraine between Ukraine and Russia, this is more of the military-grade loitering munition, kind of in line to a degree with the Russian Lancet, if you will, or at least closer to that than the FPVs, kind of homemade loitering munitions we've seen mass-produced in the area. Thought this was interesting because it's known that Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas both have anti-air capabilities. They have man-pads to some degree. Haven't seen a lot of those used quite yet. I was just yesterday thinking that I thought I heard early in the ground invasion that a drone or two had been shot down. But there's been no reports of Israeli aircraft, manned aircraft being shot down, or even having to avoid some of these surface-to-air fires. So it's interesting. Hamas definitely has those capabilities. We just really haven't seen them put to use quite yet. Then Hamas put out a handful of videos over the past 24 hours showing very close-range engagements with Israeli forces. RPGs and IEDs used against Israeli tanks and armored vehicles, and then small arms fire and RPGs used against dismounted troops. It's just, I wanted to highlight this because as Israel moves further into some of these areas in northern Gaza and southern Gaza around Khan Yunis, the intensity of the fighting has continually increased, right? So I think a lot of people thought right when the ground invasion kicked off and Israeli forces moved into Gaza, that would be the point where Hamas stood and fought and held their line. And that was not really surprising. That's not generally what you see from insurgent terrorist organizations. They tend to wait and kind of lure you in and have some sort of prepared defense further in where it's harder for Israeli forces, in this case, to operate. But just a lot of footage coming out from Hamas recently showing that they're inside of 10, 15 meters of dismounted troops in a lot of cases, which it is you have to take from that there's going to be a fair amount of Israeli casualties. Then yesterday, Iran put out a pretty significant statement saying that the Hamas October 7th attack into Israel was in response to the killing of Qasem Soleimani a couple of years ago, which, raised a lot of questions about how much was Iran involved in the planning, the coordination, and the execution of the terrorist attack on October 7th into Israel. Then less than 24 hours later, they changed their tune, kind of completely different direction now. So there was a funeral yesterday for the IRGC general that was killed in a suspected Israeli strike in Syria a couple days ago. And at that funeral, which there were some clips showing pretty significant attendance by the Iranian public, during that funeral, the head of the IRGC spoke, and he said that the operation on October 7th was an entirely Palestinian action, with Iran having no part in the planning or execution of it. So in a 24-hour period, this is because of what happened to Iran, alluding to the fact that Iran maybe had some significant involvement, and then right back out. Just kidding. This was entirely Hamas. We had nothing to do with it. And then continuing with a statement that's not really surprising, but always just wild to hear said out loud. He said, quote, "We will never keep silent in the face of martyrdom of the sons of this nation. Our revenge will be tough as always, but a revenge that could compensate for the martyrdom of Syed Razi, the IRGC general killed in Syria a couple days ago, is nothing but the removal of Israel from the face of existence, end quote. You know, Iran's been putting stuff out like this for quite a while, but anytime a senior government official, like the head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, talks about the elimination of a nation, of a people from the face of existence, I feel like you got to pay attention to that. It's so easy at times to just brush this stuff aside. We hear so many threats from various groups around the world. It's so easy to well, they're not serious, or they couldn't really do that, or they don't have the capabilities. But there's a saying, I'm going to butcher it, but it's along the lines of, when someone tells you who they are, listen. And that, easier said than done. But if you go through history, some of the most significant events through human history, often there's a lead up where the person says what they're going to do, they're not taken seriously, and then that thing happens, and we look back and say, man, how did we not see that coming? They told us they were going to do that thing. You can actually point to the October 7th attacks in Israel as one of those. Hamas has been talking about that for a while. They were practicing how to breach fences inside of Gaza. Like, it was all there. They said they were going to do something like that, and then they did. And then after the fact, we look back and say, maybe we should have listened. So I don't know. It's a balancing act, right? There's so many of these threats. Not every single one of them can be taken as the highest priority, but either way, notable when the IRGC commander is calling for the removal of Israel from the face of existence. But that's all I got for now. Of course, if interested in national security subjects, be sure to check out the sit reps I put out on Substack. Link is in the description below. Substack now also has ad-free, sponsor-free videos that go live about 1 hour before they're up on YouTube. But thanks for watching. I'll see y'all next time.